Muito boa noite! Boa noite, boa noite, boa noite, galera! Sejam todos bem-vindos aí ao nosso canal Trades do Além. É isso aí, galera. Vamos aí agora com Forex Young. E aí, vamos ver aí como é que vai ser as operações. Vamos lá, pessoal. Vai abrir aí o ouro e o down. O ouro abriu já estrovado. Tem venda do Dow bem aqui, pessoal, ó. Quem quiser vender o Dow aí, ó, 26.800 tem venda. E o ouro tem compra. Quem quiser comprar o ouro aqui, ó, no 14,87,90 pode comprar. Quem quiser bater o ouro aí, ó, bate aí, porque ele não tá querendo voltar mais não, ó. Vendida aí no ouro. Vendida aí no Dow. Boa noite, Zé. Boa noite, Marcos. Fala, Marcelão. Tá aí o link. Quem quiser ver lá a sala do além. Venda no Dow, compra no ouro. Tem compra aí no 14,87,90 no ouro. E o Dow já pode vender aí. É mercado mesmo. Fala, Proveu! Ó o mate. Mate lativo. Deve cair o Dow. Vamos lá, galera. Liga. Pra tu.
Olha, caneca. Obrigada.
Vamos lá, galera. Vamos lá, pessoal. Então tá chegando na média de 21 aqui, ó. A gente vai vender aí 26.825. Fala galera, e esse negócio aqui, desce ou não desce, vai ou não vai, vai já já abrir aí o diário.
We don't hide in stocks. For us, cash is a risk-free, interest-earning option to buy value if and when it emerges. And that's a very, very valuable tool, rather than being forced to be fully invested at all times.
Right, given that we spend our days talking about global macro risks, a great deal of uncertainty over trade, which in fact would play into some of the themes that you invest around, consumer demand, and you kind of wonder how quickly that's going to be taking the impact as well. I'm wondering if you're comfortable with the level of cash holdings that you have, or do you think perhaps a more risk-off approach will be serving you well in the coming months, depending on what happens?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have 3 or 4 tools that we use to preserve capital. One is, as I've already mentioned, the focus on defensive companies. 2, you've already picked up on, which is high cash holdings if we can't find things that offer us what we're looking for. And thirdly, what we've done recently is we've bought 6-month puts, 5% out the money, as a way of protecting and writing an insurance premium against big falls in the market. So we don't know if the market's going to fall, we don't know when it's going to fall, but it's like buying an insurance premium. And we did it at a time when vols, which is how you price those puts, were at quite low prices, and we managed to get set. I hope and pray that I tear those puts up as worthless, but at the end of the day, it's really nice to have an insurance premium against a downturn.
Rhett, I want to get your views on a stock, but broadly on an issue that I know that this is not a stock that you hold in your portfolio, but we've seen WiseTech, which has been one of the tech darlings here in Australia, being taken down by J Capital, the short seller, saying that the company overstated its profit and organic growth. Does this surprise you? I mean, is this sort of, in your line of work, obviously speaking and vetting and doing due diligence into these companies, is there a governance problem more broadly that you see day to day?
I'm not sure there's a governance problem. I mean, it's buyer beware. So if you want to play in a stock that's got a very, very ritzy multiple, that's doing a big roll-up, then you have the right to do that if you choose to put your money into it. We take a different view in that we look for an after-tax cash earnings yield. If it's on 200 times, the implied after-tax cash earnings yield is too low for us. We think the business has a wonderful business model. The question about whether they can execute on that business model is still, the jury's still out. They appear to be doing pretty well, but when you have a roll-up, it's really hard to see through the numbers. And so we've chosen not to play there because the valuation takes away the capital preservation protection. So when things are up at those kind of ritzy multiples, you have to have buyer beware right at the forefront. If something's on a 200 multiple, I have no idea whether it should be on 50 or 250. It's up in that realm where you really have to take a very, very long view.
Great to have you on with us, Brett Kessler, Pengana Capital CIO and Senior Fund Manager, joining us out of Melbourne. Great to have you. Well, you can watch us live and see our past interviews on our interactive TV function. That's at TV Go on the Bloomberg. You can dive into any of the securities or the Bloomberg functions we talk about. You can also become part of the conversation by sending us instant messages during our shows. This is for Bloomberg subscribers only. Check it out at TV Go. This is Bloomberg. That is almost it for Debrick Australia this morning. Trading in New Zealand getting underway, and Australia is set to open in just 5 minutes' time. Let's take a look at how we're faring so far. Of course, all roads leading back to Brexit when it comes to sentiment overnight. US stocks finishing lower. New Zealand off by 1 6/10%. The Kiwi dollar trading pretty flat at the moment. We are looking at a pretty flat to slightly lower start when it comes to the start of trading here in Sydney. All of this despite earnings season largely on the impressive side, but once again, global investors finding themselves distracted by geopolitics, Brexit, trade. That's it. Debrick Asia is up next. This is Bloomberg.
Abriu aí, pessoal, dá. Diário. Vamos ver aí. Já abriu aqui.
Very good morning, I'm Hattie Stroud-Watts in Sydney. We're under an hour away from the market open in Japan and South Korea.
Good evening from Bloomberg's global headquarters in New York. I'm Sherry Yan.
And I'm Sophie Kamarudin in Hong Kong. Welcome to Daybreak Asia.
Our top stories this Wednesday. The Brexit turmoil continues, but Boris Johnson threatens to call an election as Parliament refuses to let him rush his divorce deal into law. A big departure at Boeing. The head of its jetliner division steps down, becoming the highest-ranking executive to leave amid the 737 MAX crisis.
And a new turn in the Hong Kong protest crisis, with a report saying China is planning to replace embattled Chief Executive Carrie Lam. Australian markets back online. Let's turn to Sophie for what to watch in market. Soph.
Sherry, Australian stocks a little changed after a two-day gain. Not much on the eco data front down under, but plenty of corporate updates to keep an eye on, although Costa Group has delayed its trading statement with a potential earnings downgrade looming. And WiseTech is in focus as it maintained its fiscal 2020 guidance in the face of two reports from short seller J Capital Research. Now we'll also be watching chip-related stocks across the region after Texas Instruments slumped on its weaker than expected forecast, warning that customers are more cautious and cutting orders. So watch chipmakers in Japan as well, which is back online after the enthronement ceremony of the new emperor. Now in Wellington, we are seeing stocks fall nearly 1.7%, led lower by power providers Meridian and Contact Energy, on Rio Tinto reviewing options for its aluminum smelter in New Zealand. Now we also had September trade data from New Zealand this morning. The deficit narrowed more than forecast. Now a quick check on bonds this morning. Aussie and Kiwi 10-year notes reversing course after a 5-day decline, and Treasury futures just slightly higher after cash treasuries rallied overnight on Brexit uncertainty, which did see the pound falter against all G10 peers overnight, now recovering up about 0.1%, heading back toward 129, although holding a 2-day decline, Heidi.
So thank you. Let's get you the first word news with Ritika Gupta. Ritika.
Heidi, the top US envoy to Ukraine has directly contradicted President Trump's assertions there was no quid pro quo behind his July 25 phone conversation with the Ukrainian president. Acting Ambassador William Taylor made the claim in a statement to congressional impeachment committees. The president, meanwhile, has tweeted that the impeachment inquiry is, quote, a lynching, but added, we will win. Russia and Turkey have struck a deal to create a buffer zone in northern Syria. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan talked with Vladimir Putin for more than 6 hours before announcing the agreement. It includes joint patrols and coordinated action with Syrian forces to remove Kurdish fighters from border areas. The Kurdish YPG fought for years beside US forces, but Turkey labels them separatists and terrorists. The Financial Times says China is drafting a plan to replace Hong Kong's Carrie Lam with an interim chief executive. The report cites unidentified people briefed on the deliberations in Beijing. It says Lam's successor would be installed by March if Chinese President Xi Jinping decides to carry out the plan. The FT says the interim chief executive may not stay for a full 5-year term. And Hong Kong says Taiwan's plan to send personnel to the territory to bring back a murder suspect is completely unacceptable. The case of the Hong Kong citizen who allegedly murdered his girlfriend in Taiwan prompted the controversial extradition bill that's led to months of Hong Kong protests. Taiwan wants the suspect to stand trial there, but Hong Kong says it cannot extradite him because the bill's been withdrawn. Global news, 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Ritika Gupta. This is Bloomberg. Sherry?
Ritika, thank you. Downing Street says delaying Brexit until 2020 means calling an election. That's after MPs voted against Boris Johnson's fast-track timetable to get the withdrawal agreement bill passed by October 31st. Bloomberg's Anne-Marie Hordern is in London. And Anne-Marie, so we saw Parliament actually supporting the general principle of the deal. So why did they not want to fast-track it?
Well, Sherry, MPs just felt very uncomfortable with fast-tracking a 115-page document that will change the course of British history. They say it wasn't enough time to scrutinize and really look through how the impact of this Brexit deal will be on the UK economy. So while he did win a bit of a victory in the sense that he was able to get the deal through, whether or not MPs agreed in principle on it, they weren't okay with the fast-track amendment. Now, going into this vote, Boris Johnson said if they were going to vote down the fast-tracking of the bill, that he was going to push for a general election and actually scrap the bill in its entirety. But that wasn't what happened. And for me, that was the biggest takeaway of tonight's very dramatic event. He struck this conciliatory tone and basically said he would go back to the EU. And we've already heard from Donald Tusk, who said he would recommend that the EU extend Brexit, extend the delay. So likely we're looking at possibly a January 31st delay. We'll probably get that news tomorrow.
Marie, 3 months, 2-3 months is a long time in Brexit time. What's the potential for what could happen in the next few months?
Yeah, well, this is the big question. Does Boris Johnson use those next 3 months to work on getting this deal passed through Parliament, or does he try to push for a general election, which either way he can come back with a majority and get the deal through exactly how he wants, or he could potentially lose his power to the opposition, the Labour Party. The big question is what would happen in these next 3 months is the amendments. What's likely what we can see is MPs bringing forth amendments like keeping the UK in the customs union or wanting a second referendum, basically a referendum on this deal to the people. And this is something that, I don't think Boris Johnson would be able to swallow. And in that sense, he would probably, again, try to scrap the bill and push for a general election. So I think the simplest answer is right now it's all on pause, but yet we have another delay. I think the pound is quite significant watching this. I mean, we're trading around this 129 area, but most FX strategists still see the pound popping to the 130s. The pound has been this Brexit sentiment barometer, and the likelihood of these FX traders say that the UK will crash out is not really an issue anymore. So time will tell, but it's looking likely that at least for now, the UK will not be crashing out and there won't be this chaotic Brexit.
Given how fractured UK politics is at the moment, do we have any idea what a snap general election would result in?
That's a really good question. Boris Johnson is actually leading in the polls, so he could potentially, and it's one reason why he's been pushing for a general election, he could potentially win a majority. But you have to remember, the country is still divided from the 2016 referendum. Sitting outside the House of Commons, you had about equal number of Remain protesters as Leave protesters there tonight, and when either party won the vote, you heard huge roars from them. And on Saturday, thousands of protesters marched on Parliament for asking for a people's vote. So the public is very much divided, but it does look like Boris Johnson does have a lead in the polls. He could potentially get that majority if there was going to be a snap election.
Marie Warden there with the latest on Brexit in London for us. Well, coming up, quid pro quo, new allegations that Trump tied Ukraine aid to rival Joe Biden. The latest from the impeachment probe is ahead.
Plus, our emerging markets, the next asset bubble. We'll get Newton portfolio manager Naomi Waisel take on that next. This is Bloomberg.
This is Daybreak Asia. I'm Heidi Stroud-Watts in Sydney.
And I'm Sherrian in New York. Let's head straight to Hong Kong for what to watch in markets this morning. Soph.
Well, Sherry, I want to check in on what's going on in Sydney. Aussie shares are off a tenth of 1%, set to snap a two-day advance, and WiseTech under pressure, dropping nearly 7% this morning as the company fires back at short seller J Capital's researches two reports alleging that the company in its acquisition hunt is trying to boost its narrative to demonstrate it is a high-growth tech firm. So WiseTech this morning confirming guidance for revenue for fiscal 2020, saying many of the claims in the J Capital research report are wrong. This in their response to the misinformation in a market report this morning. Now, I want to quickly turn attention to what's going on in the emerging markets, given the hunt for yield that continues. So jumping into the terminal here, you can see that EM indexes of stocks, bonds, and currencies, they're trading around the strongest levels since August. But with more political crises erupting across the EM world, investors, they are being reminded of the risk of getting too deep into high-yielding markets. In Lebanon, for example, dollar yields soared to 24% as the government grapples with demonstrations there. Now, David Levy at the Jerome Levy Forecasting Center, he warns that this cycle's asset bubble is in the emerging market sector, with serious problems in the EM space due in the next recession. Heidi.
Yeah, so the question, so why the optimism? We're going to put that question to our next guest. Naomi Westall is the EM Equities Fund Manager at Newton Investment Management in London. She joins us here in Sydney today. Great to have you. I want to throw up this chart that kind of builds on the theme that Sophie was talking about, this sudden sort of optimism. And I don't know whether it's just part of the renaissance because we were so oversold in the EM space at one point. But this chart, looking at, if you're basing it on the 200-day moving average, it does appear that we could have further upside when it comes to emerging markets, stocks, and also currencies. I mean, you look at a map and you could kind of throw a dart and hit an EM that is grappling with unrest and turmoil. So why are we seeing the upside at the moment?
I think this year emerging markets have seen an awful lot of choppiness. That's based off the trade wars fears that we've been dealing with over the last 18 months. There's hope that we move to a phase 1 deal towards the end of this year. That could provide support going into next year for emerging markets. There's also hope that the dollar continues to depreciate a little bit versus emerging market currencies, which would help emerging markets into next year. Earnings growth is very strong for emerging markets next year, and some of the risk is perhaps overstated, particularly in the more established emerging markets. India is starting to see more positive growth after a softer year, and that could be a particularly positive market for next year.
Yeah, China is really the bellwether though, right? And even if we do have a phase 1 mini deal, if you will, even if we have more fiscal monetary stimulus, you're still dealing essentially with so much growth. And now we are in a structural as well as a cyclical slowdown. I mean, does that as a bellwether for the rest of the EM complex trouble you?
So China has had 6% growth at its latest print. That's continuing to track down. I think that's well within expectations. It's not just about the headline level of China growth, it's about the composition of that growth. And it's been well flagged that China is rebalancing from investment-led to consumption-led. So I would encourage people to look more selectively within China for the stories that they're getting exposure to, not just at the index or headline level of Chinese growth. Services sectors are particularly strong within China. So the internet stocks continue to compound their growth. The education sector is still like Tencent, still like Alibaba. These names, despite multi-year growth stories, are still finding new avenues for their growth. Their payments businesses, their cloud businesses, as well as their core e-commerce and gaming businesses are showing multi-year growth stories that are now at derated levels. So long-term investors can take advantage of this opportunity.
We have seen some stability in the Chinese yuan as well. This GTV chart on the Bloomberg showing how volatility in the yuan fixing set by the government has in fact declined to the lowest level since 2011. This, of course, after the Chinese yuan broke that 7 level. So would this give some upside to those, say, Chinese exporters, and would you consider owning some of them given that a cheaper Chinese yuan could be of advantage for them?
I think China have been clear, particularly going into this phase one deal, they're not going to depreciate the yuan too much further. That would be good for them competitively on exports, but I'm not sure the US would tolerate too much further depreciation on the yuan. I think the domestic story is really where we're at in China. China, let's not forget, has a huge population to deliver on that domestic story, to grow retail sales. The retail sales market in China is now much larger than the US. That overtook the US retail sales market a couple of years back, and the growing wealth of the Chinese populace continues to be a very, very positive story, much more stable on the longer term than trading in and out of exporters.
Yeah, let's talk about trading with other exporters, because this GTV chart on the Bloomberg showing the downturn that we have seen on those economies dependent on trade with China. We're of course talking about South Korea, Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, and so forth. How will...
Então é isso aí, pessoal. Vamos lá. O ouro querendo subir aí, o Dow derreter. Chegou, Estênio. 21 horas aí. A gente vai até a Ásia. Pode dar uma... Por enquanto, mercado zóio de vidro, né? Devido aí o Brett. O alvo é 14,91. É, galera, tá vindo aí o Dow e o ouro vai-se embora, né? Aí o ouro tem alvo aqui, pessoal, 14,91. Pode ir até mais um pouco, tá? Ó, 14,91. Pode vir pra cá, ó. $14,92,60. Ok? E aqui no 14,94, pessoal, a gente vai entrar numa venda, tá? Ele bater lá. E o Dow a gente está vendido aí. Vou buscar esse alvos aqui embaixo, tá? O alvo é 26.620. E o stop tá aqui no 850. 26.850. ouro subindo aí. Alvo 14,91, galera. Tá aí. Abrir aí, pessoal, mercado asiático. Vamos ver aí como é que vai se comportar aí agora. Abriu aí. Pronto, abriu. Vamos ver aí se vai dar uma lapada para cima ou para baixo. Tô vendido aí no Dow. Tá indo aí o Dow, derretendo aí. Algo aqui embaixo. 26.625. Vai derreter mais aí. Pegaram aí, pessoal, o Dow? Pegaram aí o ouro. O ouro. O alvo aí é 14,91. Aqui em cima. Vai embora. Pegou? Beleza. Pega o seu estoque, já arrasta pra cá, ó. Ó o ouro explodindo. Explosão total. Explosão total. Lá vai o ouro. Quem tá montado no burrinho aí no ouro, soca a espora. Bora, pessoal. Soca a espora aí no burrinho, vambora. Top das Astúrias. Eu tô montado aí, ó. 14,91 é o alvo. Aqui, ó. Bem aqui é o alvo, ó. Aí, ó. Oh, corra bonita, menino. Eu gosto é assim. Eu gosto é assim. Quando soca o porrete, a espora no espinhaço do burrinho. Chegou o burrinho, arrupia. Levanta as patinhas pra cima. Vambora! Soca a espora! Vamos lá! Bora, menino! Tá esperando o quê? Pra socar a espora aí. E vai-se embora o Dow Jones. O Jones chegou aí na meta, passou da meta, que era 40, né? Já bateu nos 53. E vambora. Gosto assim. Ontem nós levamos umas porretadas, né? Hoje nós pegamos na veia, menino. Na veia. Bora! Pegaram aí? Ao Dow Jones, derretimento total glacial. Tá, menino? Quem é que montou aí no burrinho? Hã? Socaram o porrete aí, menino? Hein? Olha aí, derretimento facial aí. Como é que é? Hã? Socaram aí, el porrete. Falei que era vendo no Dow. É sim. Parabéns aí quem pegou aí o ouro. Mete o cacete nesse bicho aí, menino. Dá só de pau. Que é pra tirar a poeira do lombo do jumentinho. O jumentinho tá encostado, rapaz, sem fazer nada, quietinho. A coisa tomou um susto, chegou a arrupiar. Paulada no meio do espinhaço. Vai! Por que vocês não estão fazendo dinheiro, hein? Vocês ficam só de conversar pra lá, conversar pra cá. Os menininhos tudo aí de boca aberta. Ô papai senhor, você é demais, papai senhor. Papai senhor, te amo, papai. E vamos meter o cacete aí no Dow. Vamos lá. E é sim, mete a botina aí nesse ouro, pessoal. Mete, soca a botina. Bora! Tô esperando o que, rapaz? Olha o tanto que o Dow derrete. Por isso que eu falo, ó. Queda é muito mais rápido do que a subida, né, cara? Aí enquanto o ouro tá subindo ali, ó, devagarzinho, o Dow tá derretendo. E o Japão também tá derretendo, que é uma beleza. O Japão já tá quase 1% de queda. Só foi abrir o mercado asiático, meter o pau no Japão. O Japão tá verdadeiro escorrimento total, glacial aí, ó. O Japão faz a mesma coisa do Dow, pessoal. Aí, ó. Abriu o mercado asiático. O Japão é o fundamento total ucraniano. Esse movimento aqui, cara, que a gente fica esperando toda vez que abre às 21 horas, ó. Aqui, ó, se você coloca um slot bom, você já fez a operação. Já fez a operação aguardada, né? E depois a gente só volta, tipo 7 horas da manhã, se quiser acordar. E aí depois só às 10h30. Aí fez esse movimento aqui, ó. Você bota aí uns lotinhos bons, botou a grana no bolso e pronto. Aí tem gente que pensa que isso aqui vai ficar derretendo, sabe? Vai ficar caindo até varar a mesa aí, ó, lá no chão. Aí opera com 0,01 contrato micro. Aí chega nesse ponto que é um ponto de saída. Aí tá dando aqui $6, né? De yen. Enquanto que um lote, né? Tá dando aí, beirando aí $400 ou mais, né? Até mais, $600. Aí a pessoa fica com micro lote tentando ver se vai mais, né? Pra ver se cai mais, pra ver se dá aí 30 dólares com um microlote, né? Aí fica só na vontade. Porque ele chega um ponto, né? Chega um ponto de queda e aí acabou. Aí depois ele fica consolidado. Ó. Ele passa a madrugada todinha assim, ó. Depois de uma queda dessa. Igual aqui, ó. Ele fica desse jeito, ó. Até 7 horas da manhã. Aí ele faz esse caminho, caiu, e depois ele fica parado. Entendeu? Esse é o movimento que o Dow faz, pessoal. O Forex faz. Aí depois que faz esse movimento, aí, ó, a gente tem que sair da operação. Entendeu? Agora o ouro, esse aqui é o Dow, tá? O Dow faz isso. Agora o ouro não. O ouro ele faz um pouquinho diferente. Ele faz isso aqui, ó. Ele dá a primeira subida. Ele fica consolidado. Ele fica assim, ó. Aí ele dá a primeira pancada. Aí ele sobe, aí depois ele desce. Aí depois ele sobe, aí fica consolidadozinho assim, ó. Depois ele, puf, dá outra pancada. Aí ele anda mais ou menos nessa mesma proporção aqui, ó. Aí é justamente lá no 14,91 que a gente tem que sair. Aí depois ele fica super consolidado, cara. Aí pode rolar até uma venda se ele bater lá, sabe? Pessoal, eu tô zerando aí o Dow, tá? Zerei o Dow. Então, nós fizemos uma venda bem aqui, ó. E saímos aqui. deu 67 dólares com lote, tá? Tô saindo aí da operação. Todo mundo zera aí, se alguém quiser zerar, zera aí a operação do Dow, tá? Beleza? Aí quem tiver interesse, pessoal, de entrar no nosso grupo lá, ó, do Forex, tá aí o link. Lá a gente envia lá todas as informações através de um tutorial. Beleza? Fizemos uma operação bonita aí no Dow, parabéns aí quem fez, e aí estamos agarrados aí no ouro, né? O ouro tem alvo aqui no 14,91, tá? A saída aí. Beleza? Galera, eu vou nessa aí, sair um pouquinho mais cedo hoje, meio puxado aí, cansadão. Parabéns aí quem pegou o Dow, já zerei, tá? Parabéns aí. Então fique com Deus todo mundo, muito obrigado aí pela atenção de todos, tá, pessoal? Um abraço, boa noite, a gente se vê amanhã às 18h50 e Sala do Além às 8h40 da manhã e no canal do YouTube às 10 horas da manhã. Um abraço, pessoal, tudo de bom pra vocês, fique com Deus. Valeu, tchau, tchau, fui!